First piece of functionality that I want to show is the WRP file import. So if I just show my Control X screen here, and I'm going to go ahead and just drag in a WRP file from either wrap or control. The caveat here is that I have to have either wrap 2017 or control 2015 or wrap 2015 installed. And if I have those installed, I can drag those into the Control X workspace. So you'll see once this finishes importing here, the types of data that come across are the point clouds, polygons, and CAD models. So you can see here what I've brought in is a CAD model with a polygon. So if I hide the CAD model, there's the polygon object, and if I go vice versa, there's the CAD model that I brought in. So that is the wrap import functionality for Control X. The next piece of functionality is the ASCII import. So we have some customers that would love to bring in ASCII files that call out features. So you see these features up here in the ribbon. You know, I can create planes, cylinders, spheres, cones, all of those manually inside of the software. But what if you have those already designated in an ASCII file? So you can come over to Menu, File, Import ASCII Geometry. And in there, I can select the CSV file. It can be any ASCII format. You can just put CSV at the end as long as it has this type of formatting that you can call out inside of it. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is say that I would like to bring in just the planes. So if I hit plane and then hit add, you'll see that it adds those to the workspace. So you see it created those planes in the workspace. Now, if I wanted to just do File, Import ASCII Geometry, CSV, if I wanted to do the spheres, I could do that as well. I can come over to Sphere and then hit Add that way. But once I have the geometry in here, I can use this as reference geometry. So if I wanted to go probe these three planes or even use them for an alignment, I can do so. So for example, if I come over to live capture and I hit live inspect process, it's going to tell me I don't have an alignment, and I can say I want to proceed without an alignment. But if it says inspect
Plane.
these features, it'll tell me to go ahead and probe these features, and then I can compare them. So you can see that I'm able to import ASCII information as features and then use those to create an inspection from there without having any CAD model. As I mentioned before, we can also bring in tessellated CAD as well. So the idea here is maybe I have an elaborate CAD assembly that has lots of different objects and pieces to it. Any software that has to translate CAD files from a variety of different sources, sometimes you can run into translation error. So one way that we're able to account for that is if I come here and I say that I would like to import a tessellated CAD object. So if I come over here and say import, and then I select the CAD object that I want to use here, this bracket IGES, you have the option in our imports now to select tessellate CAD. So if I hit that option there and I hit import only, you'll see that it will create a polygon object of the CAD, allowing us to repair maybe some possible translation errors. And the other thing, though, is when you see it in the tree, you'll notice that it is technically a polygon object, but you'll notice that we color it as a gray object, and we also make all the faces selectable. So we're intelligently converting that CAD object to a polygon object. So you see here that it's technically a polygon object, but we color it gray so you know that we can treat this and act just like CAD. So for example, if I click on that face and I say that I want to create a plane from it, you see I created a plane from there. So you kind of have the best of both worlds where I can bring in a mesh object um, as a converted CAD object, but yet I can still select the faces and recognize that they are cones or planes or, circles and that different types of geometry. Another user interface enhancement is the fact that we can use user profiles, as I mentioned before. So what I'm going to do now is just open up another instance of Control X. And as it opens up, we will get an option to select a user profile. So when it opens up here on screen, you'll notice that I have a dialog box that has my expert, my basic, and my user profile. And I can select between them, and then I'll also show you how to switch between those two different users, or three different users. So you'll notice here that I have expert, basic, and operator. I can tell it to not show this object dialog again, and I can even edit what those are. So for example, before I even select it, I can come over and say, I want to edit this dialog. Right now, I can change the names if I wanted to rename what these are called. I can change the preset associated with them, so I can create separate presets of what options and what interface they're allowed to use. And then I can even give it a separate description here. Now, if I hit manage, under the manage section, I can actually come to those three different interfaces. For example, operator. Under operator, I can point it to a different preference file, different metrology standards, the ribbon interface file that I want to use, and you can even see these toolbars below. I can turn those toolbars on or off for those users, and then I can establish a new one, or I can restore my old presets from this dialog. So this gives you a lot of functionality to be able to switch the interface and how it looks depending on who's using the software. So if I get out of there and I hit basic, I just clicked on the basic and it's going to take me to this basic user interface, which is allowing me to do some quick start tools, the live capture, a couple CAD and measured tools and dimensions. But what if I want to switch over to expert mode? I can come over to the menu, file, and then you'll see user profiles. So if I come over there and I just hit expert, now it's going to take me back over to the expert mode. So you can see how these are very useful. Even if you just wanted to create a different view that has your preferred toolbars, or even make, using our customized ribbon, you can actually create your own ribbons if you wanted to, and drag and drop any of the commands from the software into those ribbons. You could even establish your own workflow ribbon and then move that over to one of the user profiles and then have your own custom interface that you can recall, but yet other people can switch over to the vanilla user interfaces. So that's the user profile section. Another area that we have available now is the metrology options. So under menu, file, metrology, we have a window to control whether you're in the default, ANSI, or ISO. So if I go over to ISO, you'll see that we have some different settings that we can switch. One that people asked a lot for is, what is your front view orientation? Is it Z up or Y up? Different softwares have different native orientations to the default coordinate system. For example, my annotations, if I need to change the size of my annotations, horizontal, vertical, offset, the different things like that, this will govern those. I can change my tolerance tables based on my metrology setup. So I can establish a tolerance table and set it up and then toggle between different standards if I needed to. Different measurement method options for GD&T. We'll expand this as we go. As we advance the software more, we'll give you the ability to adhere to some different measurement method and GD&T specific specifications. And then I can also have reporting profiles, and in my airfoil tolerances are in my metrology standards as well. So that section is the metrology standards. Another interface difference is the scan grouping. So if I just drag in another file here, we now allow you to be able to group scans. So this is a feature request that came in from our customers too, that when I'm in this measured data, you see that I have some scans from one setup number 2, and then there's scans from setup number 3. What if I want to group these into separate folders? So here I can shift select all of those scans, and I can come over and say move to new group, and I just created a group 1, and then I can select those and say move to new group, and then there's a group 2. So if I just expand those, you can see that I have the individual groups. And that makes it very easy to select different things when I'm using different tools. For example, if I came over to the Measured tab and I wanted to merge some data, I'll just clear that out. It makes it very easy to click on group 2 and select everything in group 2 in order to merge. So that's the new grouping functionality within Control-X. Another new enhancement is that we've changed some of the hard probing functionality. We've enhanced it. One of the most interesting things is we've added the ability to hard probe our simulated CMM points. So many of you know that we've had these CMM points in the past releases, but in this latest version, we've made it so you're allowed to hard probe them as well. And what that gives you is the ability to dictate where you're going to probe. So just like with a CMM, the CMM comes down and touches the same spots every time when it probes. So with portable CMMs, that's not always the case. So if I come over and I say that I want to create simulated CMM points, I can come over and click this location and tell the operator that this is the zone that I would like to create that point. And that after I create these different points, I can actually say that I would like to create a plane from these points as well. So that way, once I take these points, I can come over and say create plane from these 3, and I've actually dictated what zones will create that construction geometry. And then if I can come over and create a dimension, I just come over and say I want to create a dimension from that plane to this sphere, just to demonstrate how I can probe the sphere wherever I want, and then I can come over and probe the plane in those specific locations. Now, if we go ahead and we just add an alignment, we'll be ready to go here. So if I come over and I say I want to create a datum alignment, I'll go ahead and say I want to align by the top, side, and side planes here. And once I do that, I have everything I need to create a little mini inspection here. So the next step, all you need to do after calling this all out on the CAD model is coming over to live capture and say play live inspect.
Planar face.
So under live inspect, I come over and it tells me to go ahead and create my alignment
Planar
by
face.
probing the top plane,
Planar face.
the side,
All geometries measured.
And then before I move on, while I'm still in the alignment phase, you see that I can actually touch the part with my probe and just get some real-time feedback just to validate that my alignment is appropriate. So you see here, if I just touch it. And then another thing that people do is they'll come over near the origin, put the probe near the origin where it should be in real life, and then see inside of the software, does it locate with the origin in there. So now if I hit the back button, it'll tell me, do I want to go on and retry or iterate the alignment, or I can come over and inspect the next features. So by default, this is something that we've had for a while. I can have all kinds of measurements called out, and it'll
Spherical
give me that arrow
a linear.
as a direction and
All
tell me
geometries measured.
what I need to probe. So what it's telling me there is I go ahead and probe that sphere. And then if I come over here and I say next
Point.
inspection features, now it's going to tell me where to go ahead and call out and measure these simulated CMM points. So if I just come in and I click within that zone,
Point.
and then the same thing goes over here. If I just click within that zone,
Point.
and then click within this zone,
All geometries measured.
now if I exit the live inspect, you go ahead and look at the all the probed locations there. And if I go ahead and hide the simulated CMM points in the plane and just turn on my measurement, you'll see that it created that measurement from this plane to that sphere there. So we also made this functionality work with comparison points as well. So you can call out comparison points, and you can use simulated CMM points as the construction geometry for features like planes and lines and points and different things like that. And then you can use those to then dictate where you want to probe. So that's the hard probing functionality. We also made significant changes to the result navigator. So if I drag in a file that has a finished inspection in it, we embedded the result navigation inside of the graphics window now. So now when I need to take different screenshots and send those to the report, it's a lot easier to work with. So you see here's a completed inspection. And if I come over to my tools and go to Result Navigator, you'll see that I have two different parts in this inspection routine. I have result number 1 and result number 2, and it's all within the graphics window now. And then it makes it easier to switch between my views as well. So if I want to show the 3D comparison, and I can even toggle on the different annotations if I want to, and change those and how they look. So if I come over here, everything updates dynamically. If I come over and I say that I want to turn off the annotations, and then if I need to switch over to my GD&T view, I can toggle that on. And I can just go back and forth between the different views and see those side by side. But the biggest benefit is once I create a view that I want to work with, I can come over here and just hit add, and you'll see down below, if I get out of this tab here, that I have the ability to see these different views and scroll down. And there is my custom snapshot that I created showing side-by-side parts. So during the reporting process, I can actually create a report that's not necessarily a trend analysis, but I can compare two different parts in one report if I needed to, if I needed to do some troubleshooting. So if I come over to generate report, you can see that I have access to both my result 1, result 2, and result navigator, and I can add that custom view to my reporting process. So that is really handy to be able to do that. So that is some of the enhancements inside of the Result Navigator tools. Along those same lines, we also have the ability to throw a 3D object inside of the PDF. So if I come over to Generate Report again, I can select this option down here right above the Generate option, where I can say I would like to create a 3D PDF page in my report. So you can see here I can throw whatever I need to from my inspection into the report and then hit Generate. And what it'll do from here is throw everything into our report customizer, and then you can change anything about the report template that you want to. So if I needed to change the sizes of things, change the font, edit anything about it that I want to, I can do that, and then I can come over and hit Save PDF. And when I hit Save PDF, I can throw that to my desktop here, and once that's finished calculating, um, it'll open up a 3D PDF. I can just drag it over here on my screen. And on the first page, you'll see that there's my information about the report. And if I just scroll to the next page, you see I have the 3D object on screen. So if I click on it, it activates the 3D PDF, and I can rotate the object around. I think inside of a WebEx meeting, the rendering doesn't work as well as it does when you're on the native machine, but you get the idea that you can rotate the part around, and we have annotations showing on screen. So that is the 3D PDF functionality. For the next section, I want to talk about some of the brand new functionality that we have inside of Control X. The next section I wanted to cover is the scan process automation. So I'll go ahead and create a new file here and bring in a file that I used earlier. This is a scan of a carburetor, and this not only is a scan and an inspection, but it is a scan as a reference based file. So this gray object on screen is actually a scan, but it's also a reference object. So we can scan that object as a reference and use it to automate inspections without even having a CAD model. So you can see here, this is the throttle control valve, and we have an inspection already set up here based on that geometry that we scanned as our nominal. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And then we'll come over to the scan process, because that's what I really wanted to show in this section here, is how you can automate the pre-processing of scans. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have the carburetor or valve. On the right-hand side, you can see that we have two groups of scans. They're actually not grouped yet. So if I come over and I regroup them, like we talked about earlier, and I say that I want to group them, I can actually run some scan processes on these different scans. So the idea here is, under the scan process, I have 3 of them already built, but I'll just walk you through how the interface works. So if I click on scan process and then I double click, we can go into the scan process designer. And if I wanted to create a new script, I can do that right now. If I just come over here and say new process, the way this works is I create a new process, and on the left-hand side, I have all these different types of tools. And I can say I want to do an alignment, and I drag that over, and I would like to do a merge. Then after I merge, maybe I want to export, or maybe I want to sew boundaries. You can do a variety of different things. Now, if I need to edit these things, I can click on this, and I can say do a global fine alignment and then set my settings, or I can hit, and then you'll see it's going to ask me, do I want to keep those changes? Yes, I want to keep those changes. If I come over to merge, I can tell it, let's do a volume merge or a surface merge, and hit those settings. And then if I want to, I can delete this. I can add this to my file. I can import that scan process into this current document. So these processes reside outside of this current document inside of Control X. So if I open up another file, I can actually import that scan process into it and run that on that data as well. But for the sake of today, I'm just going to go ahead and exit the process designer. So the first thing you have to do is just isolate the scans that you want to run the script on. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll just hide some of these scans here, and we'll work with this data set right here first. So if I show those scans and come over to remove floor, and I hit run, and then I can come over and select the data that I want to use and hit the OK button. So what this is going to do is just remove the floor data from that scan. So now if I show the other scans, you can see that these are flipped. So we did a flip operation during scanning with this one. What I'm going to do is run a more elaborate script on this one. We're going to run remove floor and flip. So if I come over and I hit run process remove floor and flip, I'll just select those scans from that position and I'll hit OK. And you'll see that it both removed the floor, it cropped it away, and then it flipped the object over, so now it's in the right orientation. Now that I have scan group 1 and scan group 2 aligned and flipped, now I can come over to the scan process and I can say align and merge. So if I click on that one and I hit run, I'll go ahead and select all the scans and run align and merge. So what it's going to do now is take all of those scans, do a global fine alignment, then do a merge on all of those into one polygon object. So I'll just take it a second to do so, and then once it finishes, we will have one single polygon object. So as you can see right now on screen, I had it set to keep the original data. So if I hide that, you'll see that now I have this one object, this one polygon object that's merged. So if I want to, I can actually take this and add it to result number 1. And you'll see if I come over to result number 1 and I can turn on the reference and just hit rebuild, it'll actually rebuild the entire inspection on that data for me. So now you see, if I zoom in here and turn off the measured data, you can see that it created an inspection. Looks like I have a flatness on the bottom here. I have a height measurement. And you can see here I have a cylinder measurement there, perpendicularity here. So again, this is all done off of scan data that is a scan as reference. So we scanned the object and made that the nominal object, and then scanned it again to use for inspection. For the next section, I want to go over how we support multi-alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and drag in another file here. And as you can see, this file from the PowerPoint, if I zoom in here and rotate it around, you'll see that the part is bent. It's bent, it's visually warped, but maybe I still want to inspect this object, right? So right away on the left-hand side, you can see that we have a best fit alignment, and that best fit alignment is done on the left-hand side here. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an alignment on the right-hand side as well. So if I come in and I say best fit alignment based on a selection, I can come over here and window in, and I'm going to say that I want to create a best fit alignment with these selected faces, right? So if I zoom in, I can click on and add and remove different faces to control my best fit alignment. All right, so once I have a selection, I can hit the OK button, and you'll see that I'll have a selection there, and it'll best fit to the other side. And you see once it does that, it immediately breaks the association here because this is so far away from the original CAD model. But what we can do is come over to the tools and the pairing manager, and down below we can actually create some grouping. So if I hit the plus sign, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a selection set again, and I'll just select all the faces that I want to use for my first pairing. So what I'm going to do is select all those surfaces, and then I can say that I want them to be set to group number 2 using alignment number 1. Now when I hit the plus, you'll see here that it created that color. It just gives me an idea of that those CAD faces are going to be associated with my first alignment. So now if I say that I want to create a new group, I can come over, window in all of these faces. If I need to add a few more, I can do that over here. Now, when I hit the plus sign over here, it's going to create a association. I can actually tell it the current alignment, or I could actually point it very specifically to that alignment there. So if I hit OK, you can see here that I've actually created my pairing. So now if I go ahead and rebuild the document, it should create the associated pairs. So if I click on that circle, you'll see that I actually have a circle down below. So it created the circle associated with this circle up above. So now if I come over and I create another circle feature over on this section, you'll see that it actually creates it. And you'll see the dotted line is the actual, and then the darker line is the reference. So now if I take both of those circles and I come over and create a dimension between them, I can say I want to create a smart dimension between circle 1 and circle 2. I'll just select them from the tree over here and drag that out. You'll see that it actually creates the measurement. Now that measurement happens to fail, but it is creating a measurement associated between this and that in the actual. And you'll see that even if I create another alignment, so for example, if I come over and I say that I want to do an initial alignment on the whole object, it's going to tell me that it needs to rebuild the document. You'll see now that it rebuilt and it still created that measurement for me. So that is the multi-alignment pairing, and it allows you to, again, create different alignment groups to create features and create those associations between the CAD model and the scan data to make measurements that we previously weren't able to do. For the next section, I want to go ahead and open up another file to show deviation location. So this is a tool, we're calling it deviation location, but what it's really looking for, like the PowerPoint showed earlier, it's going to show the dents or corrosion on an object. So you can see that I have some defects on this part. And then what we're doing is we're going to report on those different locations and their sizes and some different things associated with them. So as a prerequisite, you have to create a coordinate system, a local coordinate system alignment relative to that object. And once you do, you can come over into the compare section and come over to deviation location. Now what it wants you to do is associate that coordinate system with the part and then create a selection. So if I go ahead and select these objects right here, this is the area that I want to inspect in reference to that location. So if I hit accept that scan data and then calculate surface, what it's going to do is it's going to take that selected data and calculate a surface from it and use that as a way of checking the dents or the corrosion in that surface of the part. So you can see if I zoom in, there is the surface associated with the data. Now if I hit the next icon, by default you're going to see I have some settings here and I can adjust up and down. I can change the values associated with these different locations. And I can filter based on the extraction depth, and I can have a depth adjustment. And you can see here that I can go max or min, and you can see how it changes how we define what ends up being deviation from the nominal. I can also adjust it based on extraction height. I can filter based on smaller than or larger than or based on area. And then once I'm done, I can hit this icon here and it'll create the dent objects for me. Now if I hit next, it'll create these objects for me for dimensioning purposes. So you see here, if I move all these different objects off the screen, so I can see the different areas. I can create measurements between these objects. So if I go ahead and I create a selection between these three different objects here and hit the checkbox, you'll see that it'll pull the measurements between these different objects, the minimum distances between them. So what you can do is you can identify these areas and then create a selection. So if I wanted to select all of them, I could just come in and do a select all or window in. And use just the ones that I'm interested in. And I can measure between them their proximity, and I can use a name associated with them, or I can even dimension them all back to the datum as well. So if I hit the checkbox, you'll see here that it'll create the dimensions all back to the datum if I want to. So if I hit OK and get out of that view, you can see that I created those dimensions associated with the dents there. So we call this one the deviation location. And for the last section, I'll go ahead and show some of the blade analysis that we talked about earlier. So I'll just drag in an airfoil. You can see here that I have a CAD object and some scan data. If I come over to the compare section, you'll see that I have airfoil analysis again. And by default, if I want to just use the world coordinate system, I can say the Z direction, and I can choose a distance. And then when I hit next, it'll take me inside of the cross section. So this is a very industry specific tool. It's designed to measure airfoils and all the specific things that you would want to know about an airfoil shape. The first section of the dialog here will create your 2D compare whiskers, and I can adjust how many whiskers and their scaling to see how much bigger they are, and I can adjust the color bar information. So if I want this to have some different nominals, I can do that. So if I want this to go down to 0.5, I can do that. And if I want to do this to 0.05, you can see that I've added some more, tightened up the tolerance, and you can see it adds some more deviation there. Now if I hit next, this toolbar, you identify where x plot positive is, because everything's in respect to the coordinate system. You need to know um, where your leading edge is and which direction x plus is in relation to your leading edge. So if I say x plus, that's going to tell the software what coordinate system we're in, and then all of the different measurements that we pull off of this section will be associated with that. So these are all the common measurements that you would want to know inside of the airfoil industry. So if I come over and say I want to pull the chord length, it just automatically pulls that chord length for you. Your max chord length, you can see I can click on that. Your BA angle, if you need that, you see here I can pull the BA angle from there. The trailing edge thickness, I can adjust the thickness there, the thickness measurement. My leading edge radius, if I want to know that. So right now I'm manually pulling these off, but all I have to do is just click all, and it will pull all of those measurements automatically for me. So I don't have to manually select each one like I was doing earlier. So that is the airfoil tool. Again, this is something that's very specific that we've done for a long time. We're known for being able to measure airfoils very effectively, and we feel that, like, this addition to CX makes it very valuable for that vertical. So that's the final piece of functionality that I have for today. If anyone has any questions, I have a few minutes that we can take questions. All right, so let me take a look. One person's asking where I can download the software. So we do have gettingstarted.geomagic.com. You have the ability to download our software from there. If you don't currently have a license, you'll get a 15-day trial and you'll be able to run it for 15 days. But right here, you can see that if I click on the Control X icon, that I can then go and download the software, download Control X right there. If you have a current version, within a few days you should get a warning. I think we have it set for 7 days to check for updates. So within a few days there, you should be able to check for updates and then download the new version that way. Another person asked if the webinar is being recorded. So yes, we are recording this webinar, and we will send out, based on the signups for the webinar, we will send out the recording later so you can forward it to other people or watch it later. Another question I have here is, how can I learn these tools for myself? Is there some sort of training? Yes, we have developed ahead of time some sample training files that we can send out. I have them on our team platform pages. So in there, I have the data as far as the different files, a document with instructions, and a video to go along with it. So each piece of functionality that I talked about today, whether it's the scan process automation, the multi-alignment, and the reporting, you should be able to download a little tutorial that shows you how to do that. Another person asked, how can I customize a report with more than one result? So inside of that Control X, if I go ahead and just open up the Result Navigator file here, if I open up the Result Navigator file, you have the ability to, um, using the multi-result functionality, if I come over to Tools, Navigator, if I switch over to Result Navigator there, you can see that I can actually rotate the parts. I can even change different things. So if I want, if I say current visibility, I can come over and maybe I can turn on or off my measured data. I can turn on my 3D compare results. Um, and then I can capture a screenshot. You see that customized view right there. So if I switch over to the model view and show here, I can capture multiple screenshots there, some custom views. Then when I come over to generate report, I can actually come over to Result Navigator here at the bottom, and then I can throw in that into the report, a customized view. So if I wanted to pull specific dimensions from one thing or another, I can customize the report to show side-by-side reports there. I have another question here. Can you use simulated CMM points to create any feature? So yes, you can use those simulated CMM points to create other features. So if I click on them and I create different points in space, I can use them to create cylinders, spheres, um, slots, whatever features that I need to create inside of the software, those can be used as an input for other features. So simulated CMM points are really useful for that. So I have a lot of other questions, but because this was a little longer webinar, we'll follow up with those questions offline and I can answer a lot of those specific questions with the people that asked them. Thank you for taking the time to watch the Control X release webinar. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out to any of our marketing or sales or application engineering staff and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you for your time.